One evening, four merchants who arrived together wanted to stay at an inn, but the guest rooms were already full. Since there were no other accommodations available, they pleaded with the innkeeper to make arrangements. At that time, an old man's daughter-in-law had just died, and her body was still in a hut 100 steps away from the inn, while her son who had gone out to buy a coffin had not yet returned. Despite the circumstances, the four merchants had no choice but to accept this accommodation. The hut was low, and a short candle was lit on a table, flickering in the wind, with a makeshift canopy and paper blankets covering the deceased. There was a continuous bed in the room, and without time for further observation, the exhausted guests fell asleep immediately, their snoring fluctuating, except for one whose sleep was still hazy. Suddenly, he heard the creaking sound of wooden boards compressing, and he hurriedly opened his eyes to look outside. It was silent and dark, but the candle in front of the spirit bed was bright and dazzling. The female corpse had uncovered the blanket and sat on the edge of the bed. After a while, she got off the bed and slowly groped her way into the bedroom. Her complexion was pale gold, and her forehead was covered with a white silk cloth. She approached the sleeping platform and blew air by the lips of each companion in turn. Terrified, the guest secretly covered his forehead with the blanket and held his breath tightly. Soon, the female corpse came and blew air again. Feeling she had left, he heard the rustling sound of the paper clothing and carefully peeked out. The female corpse lay stiff as before. He was trembling with fear but dared not make any noise, only secretly tapping his companion's feet with his foot, but they did not respond. After a long consideration, he felt that there was no other way but to flee. Just as he made a slight movement, the creaking of the wooden boards in the outer room started again. He was even more afraid and quickly tucked his head back under the blanket. Feeling the female corpse coming again and blow air several times before slowly retreating. The sound gradually ceased. He stealthily reached under the blanket for his trousers, quickly put them on, and ran outside barefoot. The female corpse also got up and followed him. By the time she left the canopy, the guest had already burst out the door. The female corpse relentlessly pursued him. The guest ran and howled, but the villagers did not hear him. He wanted to knock on the innkeeper's door, but fearing it was too late, he ran as hard as he could towards the main road leading to the county town. Upon reaching the eastern suburbs, he saw a temple and heard the sound of a wooden fish, a Buddhist percussion instrument, so he hurriedly knocked on the wooden door. The Taoist priest, unused to such early and urgent knocking, hesitated and did not open the door. Soon, the female corpse was only a foot away. The guest was even more terrified. Outside, there was a large white pop. The corpse went left, the person right, the corpse right, the person left. After a while, both were exhausted. The corpse suddenly stood still, and the guest, sweating and panting like a bull, also stopped. The female corpse suddenly lunged, stretching out both arms across the tree to grab him, and the guest fell to the ground in fright. Unable to grasp him, the corpse clung to the tree stiffly. The Taoist priest listened from behind the door for a long time until all was quiet, then lit a lamp and came out. He saw the guest lying on the ground pale as if dead, but there was still some breath when he checked. The guest was carried into the temple, and only at dawn did he awaken. After drinking some water, he told the Taoist priest what he had seen and heard. By then, the morning bell had already rung, and the dawn was faint and indistinct. The Taoist priest saw the female corpse stiff between the trees, was greatly alarmed, and quickly sent someone to report to the county magistrate. The county magistrate came personally to inspect and ordered people to pull the female corpse's hands away, but they could not be moved. Upon closer inspection, they found that each hand had 4 fingers curled like hooks, with the nails deeply embedded in the tree. It took several people to finally pry them loose. People were sent to inspect the inn and found it in chaos, with no guests dead. Hearing the report from the constable, the old man went there and brought the female corpse back. The guest mournfully told the county magistrate, 4 of us came out, but now only I am returning. How can I explain this to my fellow villagers?